however have you developed the confidence to take these chances, the very chances we see, the bets we've seen won all around us here?
Yeah. Well, actually, I think in a way you touched on this slightly earlier on when you said that in some ways the technique isn't as risky as the journey. And I think that there is a connection between those two things. Because if I've invested a lot of time and energy in planning a journey and a lot of money in getting to these particular places, then the time, then the energy, it goes in that order, to get to a place in order to make a painting. Well, first of all, the painting has to be of sufficient heft in order to make it worth all that effort. There wouldn't be much point in going all the way to Everest and coming back with a couple of paintings this size. That wouldn't satisfy what's required. And so the paintings have to be, I think, ambitious in scale. But on the other hand, I don't think they're that risky in technique. I mean, I think that if you were to look at Winslow Homer, I think you would think that he had a risky technique because he was very risky. He would take a lot of chance with his work, and he would sum up a landscape absolutely beautifully in a few brush strokes. And of course, I've always wished I could do that. But I think because I've invested so much time and effort in getting to this place, it's imperative that I come back to my studio with something which is going to work. And so I don't actually feel I can take big risks with the technique. So the work is fairly carefully organized in many ways, albeit it's on a large scale, but nonetheless, it's the technique itself is fairly tightly controlled, I think. And I sometimes struggle with that myself. I remember going to the Grand Canyon once when I was getting fed up with this idea that I actually have to sit in this same place for 10 days in order to make a painting, or 2 weeks, or 3 weeks sometimes, in order to make one painting. And I was getting fed up with it. I thought, this is an absurd way to work. I must be able to break out of this way of working. And so I took a 6-foot sheet of paper and 6 by 3. I put it up at the edge of the Grand Canyon. I camped next to it, and I worked on it for 21 days. And I stood back, and I thought, oh, damn it all, it's just the same Foster. I could not alter my way of working at all. And I realized it's like trying to alter your handwriting. If you're not painting in your natural way, then it shows. And I could not paint in any other way. This is just who I am. I must be, I suppose, I have a fairly analytical eye, I think. I'm not trying to make reproductions of the exact landscape. If I wanted to do that, I'd take a photograph. And I don't think there's any particular merit in accuracy. But what I'm trying to do is be truthful. And I suppose I'm being truthful about my response to the landscape. And I'm trying to be truthful to myself about what I say about it. And somehow that results in these pictures that I do. And of course, the paintings aren't finished on site. They're probably 2/3 done on site, generally speaking. And they're finished in my studio in Tywardreath. And in order to do that, I simply scribble notes on the painting about the colors, the mixture, the light, the whatever's happening, and notes to myself. But I simply write notes about how the painting has to be finished. In other words, what the color of the foreground rocks should be, and so on, all those kinds of things, just written notes. And I rely on those quite a lot. But I also, if something happens in nature while I'm sitting there painting, and I'm not about to get my diary out and write it down, I simply scribble it on the side of the painting, and then I pick up on it afterwards if it still seems interesting when I come to put the final work together with its notes underneath and its symbolic objects and so on.
When I was in Tony's studio, he mentions these souvenirs that he collects, and you see many of them attached to the paintings. He has a wall covered, the largest wall actually,
yes.
is covered with little plastic bags filled with as yet undesignated souvenirs. I mean, they're not yet attached to painting. I'm sure they are in his mind, but I took a picture of this because I've never seen anything quite like it in an artist's studio. It occurred to me that there's an affinity between a lot of things Tony does and certain tendencies in conceptual art of our time. And I mentioned Richard Long and asked him whether he had an affinity for Richard Long's work, and he avowed that indeed he did. He is a big admirer of Richard Long's work. The whole idea being that your attention and the person behind it, the person that embodies it, travels in the world and brings something back, which would otherwise be unavailable to anyone but the individual. And so I was kind of struck by that. I found that very confirming.
But honestly, if I could paint like Winslow Homer, I would.
Well, who wouldn't, actually? Who among us wouldn't do that if they could?